Hey crew, it's Mike with Riding in the Ozarks, and today we're going to talk about the 2021 year-end financial report from Harley Davidson, their first quarter of 2022, and what I think is their biggest problem that could eventually destroy Harley Davidson if they don't do something about it. For 2021, motorcycle revenue for the motorcycle segment, which includes parts and accessories and things like that, was up 39%, which is great. But 2020 was down 29%. So it's good, but it's not as good as it looks. In the end, we see a net income of $650 million. That's income. That's great. That's not revenue, that's income. You know, it's $649 million better than they did in 2020. Now, I know 2020 is a shit year, and it's really not something we want to compare against, so we are going to look at 2019 numbers. The problem is all their slides in their financial reports always reference the previous year. So everything we're going to see for 2021 or 2022 is referencing the previous year. We want to kind of look at 2019 pre-pandemic and see how things are comparing to that. If we look at their sales numbers historically, we can see that 2021 is up from 2020, but it's still below 2019. Now, let's take a look at what the revenue is for those 2 years. In 2019, total revenue was $4.57 billion. And in 2021, it was $4.54 billion. What I find interesting about this is in 2019, they sold about 218,000 units. And they sold about 195,000 units in 2021. So how did they make up all that revenue with less sales? Since Harley Davidson no longer provides a revenue breakdown inside the motorcycle segment, we only had this explanation from their slides. Pricing was part of the growth, but it was a pretty small part. Mix was the biggest reason. Don't be fooled by volume, because in this slide, the volume is compared to 2020 and not 2019. This means outside of a price increase, revenue grew because they sold more touring bikes and fewer Sportsters. How do I know that? Because the CFO said so in one of their financial calls. She came right out and said that there is a bigger margin on the touring bikes than the Sportsters, and that they're improving their revenue and their profitability by improving their mix and selling more touring bikes and less Sportsters. Don't hate the messenger. I'm just telling you what they said. Like I said, they used to provide a slide like this one from 2019 that shows you the revenue breakdown inside the segment, and they no longer do that. I wish they still did that. This is all we've got to go on. Now, the good news is for 2021, like I said, they are $650 million to the good. So how is 2022 starting off? Well, in April, they released their quarter one results. And we can see here, they are up $223 million for the quarter. That's a positive thing, right? Well, at a quick glance, we can see that sales are up 2% worldwide. But the big revenue driver this quarter is pricing, which is passed on to us, the consumers. Now, in case you're wondering why I said passed on to us, the consumer, that's because we are not actually Harley Davidson Motor Company's customer. Their customer are the dealerships. The dealerships are who pay them for motorcycles, and then we are the customers of the dealerships. Now this brings me to what I think is Harley Davidson's biggest problem they're facing currently, and that's the dealership network, or as some people refer to them, the stealerships. I'm not trying to hate on all dealerships. Don't, take that the wrong way. I think there are some great dealerships out there. A lot of it has to do with people's perception and experience. I can do a video, and someone in that video will call me an HD Kool-Aid drinking fanboy, and someone else will call me a hater. It's a matter of their perception, and I see the same thing with dealerships. A dealership in my area recently did something that upset another content creator, and I don't disagree with them. I think the situation sucks, and they had a bad experience at that dealership. I have a friend who went to that dealership and was just telling me a month ago about what a great experience they had there. So my point is, every interaction is not necessarily a representation of the whole. Let's talk about some of the problems. The biggest complaint I hear from actual HD customers are price gouging and poor customer service. If you live in an urban environment, you probably have a couple different Harley Davidson dealerships you can go to. But if you're someone like me who lives in a rural area where it's 100 to 200 miles to a Harley Davidson dealership, this can be a real problem. Because if you have a problem with one dealership, You're now driving an extra 100 miles to get to the next one and hoping that you have a better experience with them. I can personally say I've never had a terrible experience at a Harley Davidson dealership, but I've definitely had experiences with some dealerships that stand out and shine much more than the rest. Now, I have bought one motorcycle brand new from a dealership, and we recently bought a used motorcycle from a dealership. And both of those purchases I did at dealerships that they wanted my business. They wanted me there. They didn't make it hard on me to buy a motorcycle. They bent over backwards, did everything I asked, did everything I could have wanted to make that go smoothly and quickly and get me in and out, and which is what I wanted to do to get my motorcycle done. I had a dealership tell me once that people don't want a Walmart experience when they come to a Harley Davidson dealership. They want a premium experience. And I understand what they mean. And I think premium from a customer service standpoint and from a facility standpoint is one thing. But if you think about it, McDonald's is a successful food chain. Not because they have the best food though, because they're consistent. If you buy and eat a chicken nugget at one McDonald's, you know exactly what the chicken McNugget's going to be like at every McDonald's. Does that mean I want my experience at Harley Davidson to be a McDonald's experience? Well, not exactly, but an upgraded McDonald's experience may not be bad. I mean, the price gouging thing is a real problem. I would like to see pricing be more consistent. Maybe there's a market adjustment that is limited or capped. So maybe they can sell up to 10 or 15% over MSRP, but not 20 or 25% over. I think it's really hurting Harley Davidson, and I think a lot of the consumers see this as Harley Davidson's fault, not the dealership's fault. Now, Harley Davidson sets the initial price from the motorcycle, and I do think that Harley Davidson has maybe the ability to control some of this. I mean, I've been told in the past that when dealerships are claiming that Harley Davidson is telling them to mark the bikes up over MSRP, I've had other dealerships say, no, we own the bike, we can sell it for what we want. Well, a few years ago, Harley Davidson, under the new CEO, came out and said, stop discounting and incentivizing sales, sell bikes at MSRP or higher. So if they can push dealerships to sell them at MSRP and higher, why can't they also push dealerships to not price gouge? I mean, if they can control what the bottom price is, I should think that they can also control what the most or maximum price is as well. I understand that dealerships need to be able to compete on price and service and things like that. And if you thought about it, if we did limit the pricing and that there was a closer range in price between dealerships, then you would pick what dealership you wanted to deal with based on what? Customer service, how well they treated you, how good their service work was coming out of their shop. Now, is that such a bad thing? I mean, I hate to see free enterprise and competition stifled by price controlling, but I don't think that making dealerships compete on customer service is a bad thing either. I don't know that I have a perfect solution for this problem, but if you think you do, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you would do to fix the dealership problems, or do you think it's not a problem at all? I know some of you will say Harley Davidson's biggest problem is that their bikes have become too expensive. Let's talk about that real quick, because I've done some research on this, and I've actually been looking into this a little bit for months, off and on, just in my spare time, trying to really understand if they have become more expensive and just how much more expensive have they become. So I found in 1965, the average income was $4,658 for Americans. And in 1965, an FL cost around $1,600. Now, I got that off a website. I don't know how accurate it is. If any of you guys out there know what an FL cost in 1965, and if I'm off by too much, let me know in the comments. I would say a 1965 FL, if you were going to compare it to something on the modern lineup in 2020, let's say, probably an electric glide, a basic touring motorcycle. So that FL in 1965 at $1,600 was about 34% of the average income for 1965. Now, if we go to 2020 and we look at an electric glide, which is around $19,000, and the average income in 2020 was $55,628, well, that comes to about 34%, which is not that much difference than it was in 1965. That FL was 34%. So let's find another one to compare. All right, in 1977, Harley Davidson released a Super Glide. I actually found a image of a magazine article that was printed that talked about the price of it, $2,801. Well, that was about 30% of the average salary in 1977. In 2020, 30% of that $55,000 salary is about $16,000. And for that price, you could buy a Softail Slim in 2020. It was just a little more than the Lowrider, a little less than the Lowrider S. So pretty much comparable still with a decent, cruiser. In 2006, Willie G launched the Street Glide, and the list price was almost $18,000 in 2006. What does a Street Glide cost in 2020? Well, a basic Street Glide was $22,000 and a Street Glide Special was around $27,000. 14 years later, $4,000 in increase. Now, my point here isn't that Harley Davidsons aren't expensive. They are expensive. They've just been expensive for a long time. Well, I did a poll, and this was the video topic you guys all wanted by far. So that's what we've put out today. Hope you guys liked the video. If you do, please consider giving it a big thumbs up. Maybe share it out with your friends on social media. As always, love you guys. Keep on riding. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the next one. Out.